Lately, Sarah had been spending more nights at the office, always with some excuse. A big deadline, an urgent meeting, a project that couldn't wait. It all seemed like part of her routine until one night, I noticed something. The unmistakable scent of cologne lingered on her blouse. A scent that wasn't mine. That night is still burned in my memory. She stood at the door, brushing off my questions with a tired smile that quickly faded. I knew her well enough to sense that something had changed, but I couldn't quite pinpoint what. I tried convincing myself I was just overthinking, but the feeling wouldn't leave me. I couldn't sleep, and as the days passed, my suspicion only grew stronger. One evening, she went out again, supposedly for a business dinner. I had put the kids to bed and tried to lose myself in a movie, but the tension in the house was suffocating. My phone buzzed with a message from my friend Rob. "Mark, you okay? You've been quiet lately." I sighed deeply, then decided to be honest. "I don't know, man. I feel like something's wrong with Sarah. She's always working late or meeting friends, and when she's home, she's not really here." "Have you talked to her about it?" he asked. I tried, but she just brushes it off and tells me I'm imagining things. His reply was cautious but direct. "Look, I'm not saying anything's going on, but if you feel something's off, you owe it to yourself to find out." I stared at his message for a long time. The words echoed in my head like a warning. That was it. I knew I had to get to the truth. The next day, Sarah left her phone on the kitchen counter before heading to shower. My heart pounded as I picked it up, my fingers cold and trembling. I knew I was invading her privacy, but I couldn't bear the uncertainty any longer. As I scrolled, a notification caught my eye. A message from someone named M. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." The ground beneath me disappeared. My hands shook as I set the phone down, trying to regain my composure before she came back. How could I confront her? What could I say without breaking down? When she returned, I forced myself to act normal. She kissed me on the cheek, too distracted to notice the strain in my smile, then left for work. As soon as she was gone, I sat there, staring blankly at the wall, trying to make sense of the betrayal unfolding before me. This wasn't just some fleeting affair. She was falling for someone else, and I hadn't seen it coming. That evening, I reached my breaking point. Sarah had told me she would be working late again, but I was done believing her. Knowing she had a few errands to run before heading to the office, I decided to follow her. I left the kids at my mom's for the weekend, telling them I'd be back soon, then set out to uncover the truth. I parked outside her office building and waited. Minutes turned into hours, and the feeling of dread grew stronger. Just when I thought I couldn't bear it any longer, I saw him, Mike, her coworker, walk into the building. My heart sank. This was it. I waited until the office lights began to dim, then quietly made my way to the entrance, slipping inside unnoticed. My heart raced with every step down the hallway. As I neared the conference room, I peeked through the glass door and saw them sitting close together, leaning over a table cluttered with papers. My stomach churned as I watched them laugh, the chemistry between them unmistakable. Then it happened. They leaned even closer, and before I could process what was happening, they kissed, passionately. My world spun. My throat tightened. It felt like everything I had known was crumbling in front of me. "Sarah," I shouted, bursting into the room. She froze, turning toward me, her face pale. "Mark, what the hell is going on?" My voice bounced off the walls, raw with anger and devastation. "It's not what you think," she stammered. "Not what I think. It's cheating, Sarah." She took a step forward, tears welling in her eyes. "Please, let me explain." Mike raised his hands defensively. "Mark, this isn't the time or place." "Shut up," I snapped. "This is between me and my wife." Sarah's voice broke. "Mark, please, let's talk about this." "Talk?" I let out a bitter laugh. "You think we can fix this with conversation? You betrayed me, Sarah. You betrayed our family." "I didn't mean for it to happen," she sobbed. "I swear, I was lonely and Mike was there to listen." "Lonely?" My voice dripped with disbelief. "You have 2 kids at home, and that's your excuse?" Anger mixed with despair as I felt my world collapse even further. "What about Emma and Jake?" My voice cracked. They love you, and this is how you repay them? I know, she whispered. I know, and I'm sorry. I'll do anything to fix this. But I couldn't listen anymore. I turned and stormed out, feeling like I was losing a part of myself with every step. I got into my car and drove, the world outside a blur through my tears. My hands gripped the wheel too tightly. I was speeding, nearly losing control, swerving to avoid the guardrail. My mind was in a frenzy. How could she do this to me? How could she choose him over our family? When I arrived home, the silence offered no comfort. At least the kids were at my mom's for the weekend. I felt a deep ache in my chest as I walked through the empty living room, echoes of laughter from happier times haunting me like ghosts. I made my way to the bedroom, the weight of what had happened pressing down on my shoulders. I started packing a suitcase, each item I placed inside feeling like another piece of my shattered heart. I grabbed a few shirts and jeans, not knowing how long I would be away. My eyes landed on our marriage certificate, framed on the wall. My chest tightened, and without thinking, I ripped it down and tore it in half. The finality of that action washed over me. My entire life had been a lie, and I couldn't pretend anymore. I finished packing and made the decision to leave, at least for a few days. I found a motel in the next city and called to book a room. As I hung up, a sense of dread settled over me. My life, as I knew it, was over. The situation had spiraled out of control, and now I was alone. When Sarah returned home, she called out for me, but there was no response. All she found were my empty coat hangers and the torn remnants of our marriage certificate scattered on the floor. Panic set in as she searched the house, her voice growing frantic. "Mark, where are you?" she shouted, her voice trembling. She pulled out her phone and dialed my number, but it went straight to voicemail. "Mark, I'm so sorry. Please answer. I love you and I can fix this. Just give me a chance. Please come back," she begged, her voice cracking with emotion. But I was resolute. A few hours later, I called Rob. I told him everything. Sarah was cheating on me, and it was all true. Anguish filled my chest as I asked him if he could meet me for a drink. We met at a bar near my motel, and I let the weight of my heartbreak pour out in our conversation. I told him about my plans to divorce Sarah, and Rob listened quietly. He then mentioned a lawyer he knew who could help me. We had a couple more drinks, discussing the situation in depth before I finally returned to the motel. The next morning, I spent some time walking through a nearby park, my hands shaking as the reality of what I was about to do sank in. Each step felt heavy, weighed down by the enormity of it all. The days that followed were a blur as I tried to settle into the motel, each passing hour a reminder that my life had changed forever. For hours, I sat there, lost in thought, reflecting on my marriage, my children, and my uncertain future. It became clear to me that I couldn't continue living this way. The love I once had for Sarah had burned out, reduced to nothing but ash, and there was no way to rebuild from that. Finally gathering the strength to call her, I heard the desperation in her voice. "Mark, please just talk to me. I'll do anything to make this right. I love you." I let out a deep sigh before responding, my heart heavy with sadness. "Love isn't enough, Sarah. You've destroyed my trust, and I can't just forget that. I'll go to counseling. I'll change. Please, don't leave me," she begged, her voice breaking. But I was firm, despite the pain that threatened to consume me. "I have to think about our kids," I replied, my voice resolute. "I don't want them caught in the middle of this." "Mark, please don't leave me," she whispered, her voice full of anguish. But I knew what I had to do. I had to be strong for our kids' sake, to give them a chance at a stable life without the constant tension that had started to poison our home. After hanging up, I took a deep breath and dialed my mom's number. She picked up almost immediately, her familiar voice offering a small sense of comfort amidst the storm. "Mark, honey, is everything all right?" she asked, worry lacing her tone. I hadn't yet told her what had been happening, and I could hear the concern in her voice. "Mom," I began, my voice faltering. "I need to talk to you about something. It's about Sarah and me." The words came out strained, but once I started, they poured out of me. I told her everything, the late nights, the lies, and how I found Sarah with someone else in her office. There was silence on the other end before she sighed softly. "Oh, Mark," she murmured, her voice filled with sympathy. "I had no idea you were going through all of this. I'm so sorry. What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted, feeling overwhelmed. "I'm just trying to figure it out. I can't even bring myself to go back to the house right now. I thought I might stay at the motel a bit longer, clear my head." She paused, processing the weight of what I had shared with her. "What about Emma and Jake?" she asked gently. "That's why I'm calling," I said, rubbing my temples. "I think it's best if they stay with you for a while, just until things calm down. I don't want them caught in the middle of this mess. I need time to figure out what to tell them." Mom sighed softly, but there was resolve in her voice. "Of course, honey. They're welcome to stay as long as you need. I'll keep them busy, take them to the park, and try to make things as normal as possible for them. You just focus on what you need to do." "Thank you, Mom," I whispered, relief washing over me. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You don't have to do this alone, Mark," she replied gently. "Take all the time you need. And remember, whatever happens, you've got a family who loves you and will help you through this." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Her words, her support, they meant the world. Knowing that Emma and Jake would be safe, surrounded by love, gave me a sliver of peace. The road ahead still felt incredibly long, but at least I wouldn't be walking alone. A few days later, I went back to the house. Sarah was there waiting for me. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept, her eyes red from crying. But I was beyond caring. I was there to get the rest of my things and start over without her. "Mark, please," she whispered as I packed. "We can make this right. I'll do anything." I shook my head, my voice empty. "Sarah, do you really think I can ever trust you again after everything you've done?" She sobbed, reaching out for me. "I was lost, Mark. I got caught up in something. I didn't mean to, but I know now what a mistake I made. Please, we have to try for Emma and Jake." I closed my suitcase, feeling nothing but a hollow ache. "I'm doing this for Emma and Jake," I said quietly. "They deserve parents who respect each other, who love each other. I can't give them that anymore." That day, I called my lawyer and filed for divorce. The hardest part came when I had to tell the kids. They were too young to understand, too young to know why Daddy wouldn't be coming home. But I promised myself that I'd be there for them, that I'd fight for every opportunity to be the father they needed, even if it meant starting over. I was determined to shield them from the fallout of our broken marriage. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my life piece by piece, finding strength in places I didn't know I had. The nights were long and lonely, and the scars of betrayal didn't fade easily, but slowly I found a new normal, one that no longer depended on lies or broken promises. Looking back now, I realized that I had lost something precious in those moments, but I had also learned what I truly needed in life: honesty, loyalty, and a love that could withstand the trials of time.